Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal story, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. Welcome to the Follow the Brand podcast. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Innovation is key to gaining a competitive advantage in today's business climate. Can you enable a senior technology executive to move their business forward with a technology platform? Can you guarantee efficiencies, financial gain, optimization, and operational effectiveness? The role of technology executives has changed. Understanding what a business requires, what they have today, and how they can leverage technology in the future gets you a seat at the table, says Glenn. Understanding the C-suite conversation around roles, incentives, and responsibilities put you in the trusted advisor position. Know that you are there to help them with creative ways to use technology. Dr. David Glenn is an industry leader with over 35 plus years of experience as a global technology and business operations executive. He has extensive expertise in leading global complex organizations, as well as a successful track record consulting with small, medium, large organizations to deliver sustainable growth and value by leveraging technology to increase operational efficiency and produce measurable cost reductions. As a respected industry expert, David contributes to CxO and CxO Review magazines, as well as keynote appearances on cloud adoption, corporate transformations, and technology trends and enablement. David is also a frequent speaker at the Gartner Infrastructure and Operations event, with industry-leading go-to-market strategies as well as depth as an industry expert. David has extensive experience as a senior executive managing P&L for global organizations and is recognized for driving growth and increasing profits and being a proven leader. He is a mission-focused, seasoned, strategic, and process-minded people leader and a manager with experience in executing and scaling an organization, leading an executive and mid-level management team, and developing a lean and results-oriented culture among a group of diverse individuals. Earning both an MBA and PhD from George Washington University, USA, Dr. David Glenn has also authored several publications for CxO Review magazine and the Office of the CxO at VMware. He was featured on Information Week 500 for leading the IT organization at Del Monte Foods, lifting them to a rank of number 27 on the Fortune 500 list. CxO Magazine Top IT Executive voted him as one of the most influential IT executives in the United States and was invited to ring the opening bell of NASDAQ. David has also served on the board of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, MDA, as well as the Association of Information Technology Professionals. Let us welcome Dr. David Glenn to the Follow the Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that people can follow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Follow the Brand podcast. You know, we're into our technology innovation series, and I don't believe you can talk technology without talking about what's happening in the cloud world, what's happening in digital transformation, what's happening in the VMware world. There's a lot that's going on, a lot of virtual worlds, virtual automation, a lot of things that are happening in the tech space. There's a lot of change. And I wanted to bring an industry expert, someone who's been involved in technology from the very, I wouldn't say the super beginnings, but he's been in tech for a number of years, maybe 30 plus years, that can talk to us from that technical world all the way to the C-suite, in which what is important, how do we really take advantage of technology in this technological age? So I want to have a great discussion with Dr. David. I'm going to call him Dr. David, DD, Mr. Glenn, and we're going to sit down and we're just going to have a nice discussion around technology, what's happening in business, and what's happening with him. So you'd like to introduce yourself, Dr. David?
Hey, Grant, very nice. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited about this. I've been looking forward to this, and I'm a big fan. So as you mentioned, I've been in the industry for about 35 plus years. I don't want to date myself too much, but I go way back to the early beginnings. I would say, I started my junior year in high school, so that gives you kind of any indication. So all the way back to the Apple IIc and the IBM PC Junior days. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. It's going to be fun.
Well, let's jump right in right there, because technology is just, we have leaps. You have, versions, you have revisions, you have upgrades, then you have leaps. We go from token ring to Ethernet to digital networking and IP networking into the internet. You have these enormous distributed networks now. And then you start getting into infrastructure loads. You start talking about cloud compute that's happening now. You got hyper cloud that's going on. You got private cloud that's going on. You got public cloud that's going on. You got a lot of cloudy people out there like, what? I'm trying to understand just the basic, understand how my computer works, and things have evolved rapidly. So here's the first question we want to talk about. Right? Like, as you look at that and you look back, these number of years, what would you have changed in your course of your tenure before you began your career at this point?
Well, all those things you mentioned are very exciting. And, the one thing that you cannot forget out of your list there is collaboration and tools, because the employees and the end users are the ones that have to be able to access all that data, and you have to be able to give them the tools and to do that. And what's different nowadays than it was years ago was, to find somebody who knew something about technology was a rarity. Now we've got 4-year-olds that are sitting at home playing on their parents' iPad or and they got technology that's geared directly towards them, and they graduate high school and they know just as much as somebody who graduated years ago coming out of a very prestigious technology program. So, what I wish I'd known, I wish I would have been able to foresee what's happened in the industry. I would have, I probably would have taken a different direction as it related to, learning various different forms of business and how business operate, because I didn't get into that till much further down in my career. And I think that would have been very essential early on, because now it's not about the various different, widgets or the, bells and whistles. It's about, developing creative ways, that you can use technology to solve business problems, right? It's about not inhibiting the business, but enabling the business on how to move forward. Everything's about, you see companies out there on, who can be the first one to get something to the street, right? Speed the market. And it's the same thing in the world right now with anybody that you work with. Everybody who's offering a solution, it's all about who gets out there prior to the competitor, who has the most creative, innovative solution, and whatever's going to do the best to increase revenue and drive the company forward. So it's a world, it's changed a lot over the years.
Well, I tell you, we had a prior discussion, and I want to bring that up. I think our audience will learn, especially my information technology audience, from the sales perspective. You talked about two things here. there's technology, but then there's business, right? And then the merge of business and technology to create innovation. So a lot of times in the sales world, we're being pushed to get to the C-suite, talk to the C-suite about, our products and services and get something done. And what the realization comes at is that at that C-suite level, they're in the future. They're looking at things from a roadmap perspective. They're looking at other things. Help us frame the conversations that you typically have with a C-suite executive.
Yeah, it's important to understand that the role of the CIO has drastically changed over the last, I would say, probably the last 5 years or so, especially since e-commerce and digital transformation type activities started happening. And the role of the CIO has really been driven more, almost kind of overlapping a little bit with the COO and the CFO. They're very involved with the direction and where the company is going, because it is important that you put out solutions there that continue to drive the business forward and enable the business. And COVID was a great example of that, because all of a sudden there was a lot of companies out there who were not prepared for the whole global work at home type of a model, right? So there's a lot of things like that that the CIO is concentrating on, continuing to move forward, right? Optimizing efficiencies, figure out ways to create productivity gains, and find ways to use technology to enhance the competitive advantage. These are all things that the CIO is thinking about. And now you've got these new roles that have come out, right? You've got the CTO, who is really the guy now that's kind of in the weeds, really thinking about application development, thinking about things like infrastructure, all the things that the CIO used to have under his umbrella as well, and getting down in those weeds. And then, of course, now we have a lot of companies that are starting to go down the path of hiring a chief digital officer, because of the whole need to be out there and really driving business from a e-commerce perspective or an online perspective. So, the role has changed quite a bit. So it is important when you're sitting in front of that person that you understand what their role is and what their role is within the organization. It's one of those things where, a CIO is not thinking about next week. He's not thinking about next month. He's thinking much further down the line, and he's thinking about things that have to line up with the initiatives that are coming out of the operating committee or the board, or how they're going to take the company forward. And the most important thing I would tell you that I've learned over the years is, as technology people, we have a tendency to hear little keywords and buzzwords as we're having these conversations, and we immediately jump into solution mode. That's a dangerous thing to do, right? It is very important that you listen, become a very good listener. And that's one of the things that if I could change over, I would spend a lot more time, early in my career, becoming a much better listener. And that is one of those things where, listen to the whole problem. And then whenever you come back, digest it a little bit, and then come forward with a solution that helps them actually solve the problem at hand. Not any type of a buzz solution, any type of a crazy innovative solution. What problem is it that you're trying to solve? And do you really understand what that problem is completely?
That is very good advice. And since we're talking about advice, and now, because it gets confusing. I'm confused. So all right, you have a CIO, Chief Information Officer. You have a CDO, the Chief Digital Officer. You have the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer. And as you said earlier, you've got to understand the audience who you're having a conversation with. So what advice would you give someone right now in their career? They want to do something what you're doing. You're a consultant for the most part. You consult with these types of leaders for VMware. What advice would you give them and try to help them understand and unpack these different roles?
Well, first of all, you need to understand the customer and who you're going to meet with. Because not every single organization is going to have a CDO, a CTO, and a CIO. In some cases, they may only have a CIO and a CTO. In some cases, they may only have a CTO if they're more of a software type company and they're driven from that side of it. So I always tell people, take the time to learn the customer, right? Go do some research on them, pull their 10K, pull things out there that are important that you need to understand where the company is going, right? It's all public knowledge. If they're publicly traded, especially, they're out there announcing, to their shareholders and everything like that, where they're taking the company, where they've been, successes, challenges that they're having. And those are the things that you really want to focus on, because when you're sitting there having that conversation, with the C-level exec, you want to make sure that you really do have a good understanding of what it is that he's going through. But I also like to tell people, make sure you understand the industry. You need to not just understand what that particular customer is doing, but you need to understand what's going on around him, because he's looking for a competitive advantage, right? So you need to find out ways and that you can kind of elevate that conversation and make sure that you have a good understanding of the industry as a whole and some of the challenges that are going on in the industry.
That's very good. And I can feel the passion that's coming through and having those detailed conversations, that you're first of all listening and then being able to give good advice from an industry expert viewpoint, right? And you've managed P&Ls for very large corporations. You're talking hundreds of millions, maybe $1 billion or so. So that's very, very significant in what you're doing. So you have to be passionate about it. So when you describe your passion about how you're solving problems, what skill set are you utilizing to be a goal-oriented results person?
Well, I will go back to what I said before. Becoming a very good listener has been one of my assets, I would say, and really getting down to and asking the right questions to pull out from the person that I'm having a discussion with around what the current challenges are. Right? You're not going to walk in a room and they're not just going to automatically give you everything that you want to hear. It takes time. It's a lot of relationship building. It's a lot of becoming that trusted advisor, right? That you want the person that you're communicating with, your executive sponsor or your C-level exec, whoever you're meeting with, to understand that you are there to help them. You're not just there to try to sell them some type of a widget, right? You are there to help them in any way. And in some cases, it might not be, your company's solution that is the best way to go. You got to do what you got to do to make sure that you become that trusted advisor. Look for that low-hanging fruit, those quick wins. Like I said, I like to one of my passions is that whole concept of driving, developing creative ways to use that technology to solve business problems. Like I said earlier, right? That is, to me, is important. I love innovation, so I love to be working with companies that I represent that are very heavily involved in innovation, because again, it goes back to that whole speed of the market. If you're just sitting around, supporting what you had, from a provider perspective, somebody's going to just eat your lunch, And you know what? There's always that the CIO especially is always looking for ways to come up with multi-million-dollar cost reductions, whether or not it's through simplifying the environment. A lot of it right now, as you hear, it's moving things to the cloud, multiple different ways to get there. It's hybrid models. It's all different types of things that you got to really understand. And it's also, the way the contracts are structured, right? One of the big things that's become very popular in the telecommunications world now is, they write these, 3-year contracts and 4-year contracts, but a lot of them now are gotten smart. And a lot of CIOs are demanding that there is an 18-month review period. So, because we all know that costs go up and down, especially in the telco space. So in that 18-month review period, if costs go down, then you're enabled to those lower costs. So there's a lot of ways in which you can be creative that show that you're a team player and that you're that trusted advisor that they're looking for.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to put on my CIO hat. I'm sitting here, right? And I'm going to ask this question because I have an on-premise data center. I have co-location facilities. I have public cloud applications as well. I've got all 3 or 4 of these different things. Help me understand, what the differences between these types of modalities.
Well, you need to understand, a lot of people have a misconception of the cloud, right? They always think it's a destination. They're looking for, where is it? Where can I find it? It's not. It's a journey, right? It's one of those things where, if you think about, several years ago before the cloud really came about, right? Or some people would say the cloud's been around for a long time. It was just, hey, I used to store my pictures up on a website that Verizon gave me or somebody else, and now they call it the cloud. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can look at it, but if you think about the expense that goes into some of your larger companies, right? You mentioned you've got your multiple data centers, and then you have colos for failover, and a lot of them have to have availability 24/7, so they follow that model of follow the sun, right? So they may go from data center to data center across the globe, and while they're maybe operating out of the UK, they're backing up, and making update changes to in the US. Those things are very expensive to maintain, right? So, and obviously not just the hardware and the licensing and everything goes along with that, but the talent and the skill sets and the people required. So now you can move all that stuff into a cloud type of a configuration, and it might be you maybe have a multi-cloud solution. You might be half on-prem and half in the cloud. There's multiple ways in which you can architect it, and that is where coming into understanding the problem the customer's trying to solve, and also what their business does and what they require. And that is important because you can't put the wrong solution in place. Otherwise, you're going to be creating some significant issues for your customers. So, a lot of that, and that's where a lot of customers are now focusing on innovation, as we said earlier. Looking at taking that skill sets and moving things in a way that helps them look at things that are coming on down the line. Because if you're in IT and you're just doing day-to-day support and maintenance of what's out there, it gets quite boring, and people move on. You want to give people in technology the opportunity to play with the latest and greatest and things that are coming out, and give them the flexibility to do collaborative thinking and play, and play is probably the wrong word, but it is testing and working with new stuff that's coming out, so they can see how it will fit. That's why you'll see a lot of app dev companies now. They'll have various different rooms that they'll have tables in, or bean bags, and they may even have I've been in some where they have PlayStations where people just sit and they play and they talk, and they get very good creative to get those social type conversations happening. And it's proving it to be very successful for a lot of companies. Because remember one thing, just like you have, all of us, just like we all have a choice as to where we want to spend our money. Our employees have a choice as to where they want to work. So you got to create an environment that makes them, feel wanted, feel like they're making a contribution, and make them want to come to work every day. If you don't, then good luck to you. So
you got to be excited, and technology is an exciting field. There's so much change that happens, and now it's moving at even the lightning space. So I think of cloud computing, it's like, look, you've got access to the world compute power. It's there. Now, how do you slice and dice and utilize it? That's going to be up to you to begin to, like you said earlier, innovate. And I've seen two different types of technology shops, a lot IT shops. You have the tactical and you have the strategic. So where are you going to find that bimodal IT, right? The bimodal IT. You've got to maintain what you've got today, but you've got to be thinking forward. If you don't think forward, you never get to where you see these innovations that are coming out now. You're not talking about virtual worlds and a metaverse. What is that going to look like? You're not talking about IoT or Internet of Medical Things, or you're not talking about all these other machine-to-machine learning, artificial intelligence. All this is coming out of what you're talking about. When people get to play in these sandbox, these type of things, like how can you utilize these different digital assets that I didn't have access to before? So you're talking about AI. For me, I have to tell you, I am a big fan of VMware. I love VMware because I think it was, wow, look at that. You can have automation with these workloads. They're not so siloed, and you can move these things around. They call it virtual machines. But it's sitting there. It's a physical machine. Yeah, but you're slicing it up like a little pizza box, and you can virtualize the networking. You can virtualize the compute plane. You're virtualizing the storage plane. So this is really cool, and it's doing different things. So making that type of logic is really cool. But what can you do with it? You start getting companies like an Uber. You start getting companies like an Airbnb, and those are the ones that we know about. But I think we're on the precipice of a huge new orchestration of technology that can take place, because the world has been in this incubator for the last 2 years of, primarily leaning on technology to communicate. Communication is cool. I mean, it's key to business, right? You have to have some kind of communication. So in all that change that you've seen, and maintaining your expertise? I mean, what are you doing to stay abreast and on top of all this new innovation?
Well, the one thing I will comment on what you just said, just so it's all great. All that stuff is fantastic, and yeah, I mean, you can't get a more exciting company to work for with everything that we have going on that you do within VMware is. But I will say that it is very, very important that you don't get too excited where you start having that technology dictate how the business is going to work. It should never be that way, right? The technology is supposed to be there to support and help drive the business, not to dictate how it works. You don't want to be fitting your business into the mold that the technology has to operate into, or you will fail. So what do I do? I like to, a lot of the things we talked about, I spend a lot of time researching what's coming out in the industry. I do a lot of industry speaking. I go to many events. Of course, a lot of that has been, stifled a little bit with what happened with COVID, but also, COVID also opened the eyes for a lot of folks because one of the
This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement in operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-Star business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand.
You're talking about virtualization, but one of our biggest strong suits, it's almost considered working in a virtual world, right? Is all of our global workforce solutions, right? And that is when companies came to us in somewhat of a fit of a panic when COVID hit and their employees did not have access to their data. You're talking about communications. It's that availability of the information. If you're sitting at your desk and you need to work, you don't care whether that's coming from a data center or if it's coming in the cloud. In most cases, you probably won't even know. You only care that you have access to it and that you can do what you need to do and you can be productive and you don't spend 20 minutes trying to reset your password or you can't log on or your VPN isn't working, all those different things. And you don't want to be thinking about, you're getting on an airplane or, maybe you're going to visit, a family member and you need to log on. And then all of a sudden you're like, can I access my data from here? Can I do my job from here? All the remote capabilities are just crucial. So that was one of the things that, that came to light, in addition to just companies not being prepared. So I try to, just do my part to stay up on what's going on from various different companies and solutions. And I probably spend a good maybe 10 hours a week, at least at a minimum, researching different things that are coming out and direction and which products are going, what's being sunset, and kind of what's taking its place. I mean, if you're going to be in the industry, it's one of those fast-paced, changing industries. So that's one of the things you got to love, and it's something that changes all the time. That's every day is a different day. So
very true. You talked about reliability. You talked about accessibility, and then the availability of all the different resources that we now take for granted. You take for granted that your phone is going to come on and have all your data. It's just, of course, this is going to happen. But knowing that, people like yourself, people like myself, we make that happen because we've engineered a lot of these different things. But there's a lot of, you have to fail to succeed. I'm glad you brought some things up, how businesses can fail with their technology, because you're missing one major component, and that is the culture. I've heard this stated before: culture will eat strategy for breakfast. If the culture does not adopt the technology and they refuse to utilize, they don't see the value in utilizing it, it can fail. Can you elaborate on things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to have nowadays, especially in the world of what happened with COVID, and we now have a situation where people are very happy working from home. They prefer that, and they want to work for a company who supports that and provides a culture that supports that. And that's where a lot of these global workforce transformation initiatives are kicking off within companies. They're looking for ways in which they can provide tools and collaboration capabilities for their employees. Everybody's heard Zoom now, right? So nobody heard of Zoom before COVID, and now everybody wishes they were a stockholder, right? So those are the kind of things that companies are really looking for, and employees are looking for as well. If there's still a little hesitance out there with some customers about traveling. We're still seeing that now, and some of them are scattered all over the place. Now it's opened up a whole new workforce, right? If you're headquartered in Chicago, you don't have to have employees that live in Chicago. Now they can be pretty much all over the world. If you look at people that have left Silicon Valley because it was so expensive to work there, and have gone and moved to other states where it's less expensive and they can work and be as productive. So, there's a lot of that going on, and those collaboration tools and capabilities have to be there. And the other thing I will tell you that we really haven't touched on that's kind of key in the whole thing is you got to provide it in a safe and secure manner.
Yeah.
Because now that everybody is accessing data, across the wire, everybody's out there trying to get in and hack you. And that's the term ransomware didn't even exist several years ago. And now you're hearing about that all over the place. So that is something that a lot of companies didn't take very seriously. There's a lot of companies that I've talked to over the years that have never done anything like an intrusion detection or anything like that and don't even know what it is. And now they're reaching out to all these companies to get that done as maybe part of their audit requirements or some type of a compliance requirement. And that is something that's very, very important right now. Cybersecurity is key.
It's a $6 trillion industry, $6 trillion in cyber theft worldwide, because it's a platform that people, can find ways to get information. Information is the new gold. It's the new oil. It's your data. And if I can get access to that data, I can leverage it, for value, for money, right? So that is interesting how our technological landscape is changing, how dependent we are. I remember in the 90s, I still remember this to this day. It was like 1995, cell phones were out, had Nokia phones are kind of out. And I remember someone telling me, yeah, you should go ahead and get you a cell phone. I said, why would I want to take a phone call while I'm in the car? It's not that important. Well, something might happen to your daughter. You need to call once. You mean I can't just go and get, put a dime into a phone and call? Well, you might not be near a payphone.
What, you didn't have a pager or a beeper on you? What was that?
Nothing. Well, at that point in time, I pagers I thought was for doctors. I wasn't that important, right? And that was 1995. But I remember in 1998, I went and got my first cell phone because it gave me access as a salesperson, as an outside salesperson. Say, hey, well, if I'm going from appointment to appointment, people need to get a hold of me. This is cool. So then they're just calling the office number, and they finally made the communication where if somebody did call the office number, it could redirect to your cell phone number. So it became more useful. I said, okay, this is cool. I like that. I was tethered, but not, it was good that I could get a phone call because I thought that was important that I could, people get a hold of me. Then the smartphone came. Now I was on fire. I think I had my first BlackBerry in like 2000, 2001 or something. And because I can get my data, my email on my phone, you see, we still call it a phone. To this day, we call it a cell phone, but really it's a small computer. I can get data. Yeah. I can get my phone. And I remember I was selling or even thinking about selling video conferencing at the time. Video conferencing was like some cyborg, right? Like you had to have these things called DS3s. And I'm like, what is that? It's like this mega circuits, mega circuits.
Oh, yeah.
In order for this to happen, you get the digital imagery, the sound and the voice, and a doctor could be doing an operation and all this. And who's going to pay for that? It costs like $1 quadrillion, right? Now you got that right on your phone. So you can imagine how this technology landscape is changing. We become what I would say, used to it and dependent probably on it more than maybe we thought we were. Because I guarantee if you lost access to your phone right now, you will pay money to go get that data back. That's how dependent that we are. So how do you see this landscape changing? Like take us into the future a little bit of what you know, right? And then how you're going to help yourself set up and make that change.
Well, it's right down the lines of what you said. It's one of those things where everything is going to be available on these devices. All your applications, all your data, anything you need for work, whether it's everything. Now they have the capabilities to take applications, containerize them, put them up in the cloud, make them available to anybody from anywhere, so that you can work from anywhere. And it's that availability of information. And again, comes back to speed to market, speed to solution, whatever you need to. Customers calling you, or you have a challenge, and you got to address it. There's no excuse because you have the information right at your fingertips. So I see we're going to continue to go down the path, probably a lot further than what we've started and what you're seeing now with because of what happened with COVID. You're seeing companies are not only going to be planning their budgets as it relates to refreshes and things of that nature, they're going to have money set aside to support some type of a pandemic activity that we just experienced, because a lot of companies took very big hits because they weren't prepared for that. I think you're going to see a settling of the whole, great walkout and great resignation. I think you're going to see a settling of that. At some point in time, the market's going to have from the worker perspective, is going to have to change, because, there's a lot of these folks, that are old dinosaurs like myself that have been in the industry forever, that may, I'm going to put my foot down. I'm not going to, I'm only going to work from home. Well, guess what? Somebody just graduated from college is a hell of a lot smarter than all of us. And, and he's willing to go in the office. So I think there's going to be a give and take around a lot of that. I think that part of the whole workforce is going to settle. But I think you're going to find more ways in which collaboration is becoming very important. I can tell you now, one of the things that we've started here at VMware, you're talking about AI and VR and all that kind of stuff. I can actually now attend some meetings, and I can do a lot of my training classes through VR glasses, which is actually kind of neat. So I think you're going to see probably a lot more of that. I think you're some of that more virtual reality type of that type of interfaces and solutions for things. So I think that's going to do it. And for me, like I said, I love working for great innovative companies, and anything I can do to continue to grow and my knowledge in the industry, I'm going to keep doing it. So
I tell you, Dr. David Glenn, this has been wonderful. Thank you very much for being on Follow the Brand. I think there's a lot more conversations we can have even in the future as things take place. So if the audience would like to get in touch with you personally, what would be the best way?
They could either email me, or they can look me up on LinkedIn. You can send me a message through LinkedIn, would probably be the best and the easiest way to do it. And I'm available if anybody has any questions or would like to talk about anything further.
Excellent. I'm sure I'll have a few more questions for you. This has been wonderful. Again, I want to congratulate you on your stellar career, what you've been able to accomplish during your time. You've seen a lot of different change. You told me that the first time you touched the computer, that computer cost like $10,000.
Yeah.
You imagine the power of that computer, and what you just showed me in the power of your hand. It's probably a complete, maybe it was 3 data centers at that time.
I think the IBM PC at the time that I worked, I think it only had 128K in, or maybe 256K, unless you put an AST6 packet in and increased that memory to 640K. So
lots of changes.
Lots of change.